Hello, my fellow witches, sorcerers, and other magical practitioners. My name is Aiden, and welcome to part 2 of my Deity Work series. If you haven't seen the first video, it's in the description down below, as well as a link to the entire playlist will be in there. As this series starts coming out, you will see updates to that frequently. That episode was about what a deity is. I'm not super proud of it, so I'm going to be redoing it at the end of the series, just as a heads up. So you can watch that one now, but I would stick around for the redux of it. And that's what I'm going to be calling it. The What is a Deity Redux? Because I like that word. Anyways, enough with all that. Today's video is about Deity Contact. We're going to be going into all the details with that, everything that entails, and all you need to know about that. Of course, I will not be the be-all, end-all of everything. Please do research outside of what I do, and make your own decisions and form your own experiences. Because this stuff isn't meant to be spoon-fed to you. You're supposed to make your own opinions, form your own thoughts. That goes for everything. Anyways, so let's start with deities contacting you. Yes, you. What does that look like? How does it work? Is it even real? So deities can come into contact with you through multiple different ways. The most common way that I see is through signs. And signs come in many different forms. You see animals, you'll have like reoccurring dreams that have symbolism in them. You'll feel drawn to certain things. That bleeds a little bit into the next form of contact I see. We'll get into that in a minute. But like generally, signs and symbols is what you'll see that correspond to a specific deity. And with that deity, you can put these signs together and formulate what deity is reaching out to you. For example, let's say you see doves all the time, and not just like there's a dove that lives in your backyard as a pet and you see it every day. No, as I do see people who see animals that just live with them and they're like, that's a sign from my deities. Like, I'm not here to invalidate your experience, by the way. Everyone's experience is going to be completely different, and so if you do so genuinely feel that an animal that lives with you is a sign from your deity, like it resonates with your spirit and you understand that to be true, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. That's another thing we'll get into. But like, let's say you see doves everywhere you go, you see them all over the place, and you also have this weird smell that you always smell. Like it's a smell of roses, or the smell of, I think Aphrodite is associated with lilies as well. Not 100% on that one, but this is just an example. But you smell floral scents associated with Aphrodite, and start having dreams of this beautiful woman coming out of the sea on a seashell and washing up on this island, and all these other people coming to dote on her and praise her for being the most beautiful. Like, that's directly in her mythology. You can see that is her myth, her creation myth. She was born out of the born of the blood of Uranus, and she came out of the sea on a seashell. That's her myth. So you can use that as a basis for, yeah, it's probably Aphrodite calling to me. It makes sense to me. That's through seeing signs. The next one I see very frequently, very often, is feeling a pull towards a deity or a subject or something relating to that spirit. That has happened to me before. I got pulled into researching the deity Chaos. from Greek mythos. Chaos is a primordial god of, well, creation, the abyss in a way, all devourer, all begetter. Many things attributed to Pan are also in my UPG attributed to chaos, but this is not a video on chaos. I love them to death, and I will probably end up doing a video on obscure deities at some point, unrelated to the series, of course. I keep getting off track. There's so many things I want to talk about. Anyways, back to being pulled to research. I was pulled to research chaos. I went into their mythos. I studied all these different things about them, and truth be told, there's not a lot about them. So I had to reconstruct a lot of things myself. But I definitely felt that was a calling from chaos. They were definitely calling to me through that inspiration to research. Same thing with plenty of other spirits. You can also have, this is the rarest, but I have experienced this. You can have a deity literally come down and talk to you. Not like physically come down like a ray of light, but I was on this camping trip, and it was near the full moon, or was the full moon, and I had just been at the beach that day, and I was connecting with another spirit who was related to the waters there. I won't get into that here for personal reasons, but later that night I ended up hearing this voice while I was staring at the moon, and she identified herself as the goddess Selene. I'd never heard of this deity at all. Didn't really know much about her to begin with. So I was just talking with this deity. She was there talking to me, and I went home and researched her, and it's like, whoa, this is a real deity. Like, blew my mind. She's again another Greek deity. I have a weird track history with Greek deities reaching out to me. Very interesting. They're not the only ones, but it's definitely enough to question some things. Anyways, not the point of this video. She is a rare case where a deity will directly come down and talk to you. This can happen in multiple different ways. I was just staring at the moon and kind of meditating. I don't know if I was like praying, but something like that. Or like I just mentioned, you can be praying and a deity will come to you. Like, let's say you're praying to the universe in general, and you're asking for a deity or spirit to come speak with you. You might get someone picking up on the end of the line, being like, hey, I exist. I work well with you. Let's discuss. Not like that, though. They don't really speak like that. In my experience, I know people have really weird experiences with how deities speak to them, which I'll talk about again later. Anyways, so that's kind of like the three main ways I've heard and seen people get contacted by deities in the way that makes the most sense to me. However, your mileage may vary. You might have other forms of contact that come to you. I know people do deity tarot readings to see which deity is reaching out to them. I personally do not like that. It doesn't make sense to me in my practice. However, if it works for you, it works for you. My only caveat with that is that tarot is not... It's not in-depth enough to really cover every single deity. There are certain cards associated with different deities across different cultures and systems. Like, I know I often go to the 777 correspondences for that kind of stuff. It's pretty reliable, I'd say. And it can give you good results for what you're looking for. But it's not universal, it doesn't work for everyone, and it's just not perfect. No system's going to be perfectly cataloging every single spirit that corresponds to these 78 cards. There's not just 78 spirits. There's 72 Glacier Demons. Ah, jokes, funny, laugh, please. Ah. But that's where my real issue with the deity tarot readings comes in, and also that a lot of people find it hard to figure out which deity it is, because there's all sorts of different attributes to the cards, and deities are very multifaceted. If you like do a one card reading and you pull the sun, good luck. There's so many solar deities, and like there's different archetypes across cultures that kind of mesh together when you are looking at an archetypical set of cards, because they are archetypes. So you're going to get archetypes and not specific faces of those archetypes. But I digress. If it does work for you, it works for you. Good on you. I can never make sense of them. And I think it can be confusing for people who are just starting out, especially like just starting out with tarot. You don't understand the correspondences therein. You will have issues most likely. So, there's also guided meditations that people do to meet with deities reaching out to them. That blurs the line between the deity reaching out to you and you reaching out to a deity. So I think it's important to talk about that, the blurred line. So I personally understand it as deities don't actually reach out to you. That's the twist of the episode. Whoa, crazy, I know. But no, deities don't actually reach out to you. You are subconsciously reaching out to that deity, and that deity is just appearing in your life because it is what you subconsciously need. For chaos, I was just leaving Christianity. I was making my formal departure from it. Didn't know where I was going. I just was very lost. It was a very lost time for me. And I found myself finding a lot of things I liked about this deity and how they were understood by the ancient Greeks. They brought a lot of comfort into my life, and working with them, I learned so much. I still continue to work with them, not as intensely really, but they are very important to me. And subconsciously, that's what I was looking for. I was fulfilled because that's what I needed. I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards more popular deities, and why the more popular deities are reaching out to them. Because they are spirits that are well known in the pop culture and public eye, so they are familiar with them. And the subconscious is reaching into those figures because they are comforting, they are familiar, they're recognizable, and it shows to them what they need at that time. But there are also less common deities and spirits that reach out. Like I said with Celine. And I've had other less common spirits reach out to me. We'll get into that a little bit soon. But I do think that that's because subconsciously, even if we never heard of them, we have access to all information around the world, and spirits, and everything is all inside of us already. We have all that inside of us already. We just need to bring it out and into the daylight. But with that, we understand and learn about these new cultures, these more specific aspects of a specific culture. And I feel like that's more for helping you branch out a bit. Like again with chaos, they're not a super well known, and they weren't really worshipped either. Deity. They are very unknown. There's so much unknown about them, which is possibly why I gravitated towards them so much. Because I was lost. I was unknowing of myself and unsure. So having this deity that there's not much known about is comforting in a way, you know? That there isn't all this law and 2,000 years of history written down about them. And it's like, these are the facts. This is what we know about them. This is who they are, to a T. No room for interpretation, you know? It's just something that my um, ex Catholic mind was needing. But I digress. Yeah, I personally think that it's all a subconscious call. You are always the one technically reaching out to them. That's why with guided meditations, the deity comes to you that way. Um, there are these symbols that are brought out. Like I did a guided meditation once because I was like, why not? Let's do it. And I got Psyche. Psyche came out. Um, and I've been kind of on and off with her. I'm still not entirely sure of what her purpose in my practice would be. Though I do heavily work with Eros. I I love Eros so much. He's love, but Eros is amazing. I'll probably talk about some of the deities I work with eventually on this channel. I think if you're all interested in that, I think you would like that. But I'm still not sure what Psyche's purpose in my life would be. But I do know there is definitely a subconscious call to her, possibly for a feminine aspect to come into my life because I've been heavily working with masculine aspects of divinity. So trying to bring in more feminine aspects at that time was probably what I needed. Because I've always been tied more to the feminine aspects of divinity rather than the masculine aspects. But I'd been like kind of put in the system of masculine aspects for a long time. So I was kind of stuck with that in that way of thinking. I'm trailing off. Let's get back to what we're talking about. Um, this part's going to be kind of controversial, and if you think that I'm wrong, please educate me on this. Please discuss things with me. Do not berate me for it. Do not try tearing me apart for it, but do educate me on this and explain where my thinking is flawed. With that being said, it's time to talk about closed practice spirits reaching out and POC spirits reaching out. Um, Spirits of practices that aren't open. What do you do when they reach out? I don't think there's this. I'm thinking of a specific TikTok right here. I hate bringing up other platforms, but you know. There's a specific TikTok I've seen where this person um, basically says that if a POC spirit is reaching out to you, they're not reaching out to you to help you, to heal you, to teach you something new. They're here to hex you. If you're white, this is specifically if you're white, they're here to hex you. They're here to curse your colonizer bloodline, and that doesn't seem right to me. Um, it feels like it's another form of demonization of POC spirits and spirits from POC practices. And I don't think that's okay. Um, I don't think we should be spreading that because it creates more fear from white people of practices from POC uh, traditions. It's not okay. It's not protecting anyone's spirituality, really. Um, I think part of it is dangerous as well because it pushes white people away from exploring their ancestry more. Because I'm going to talk a little bit about myself here. I am white passing, very, very obviously, but my family is Mexican. Um, it's Mexican and British, but I really don't feel. I've tried so hard to work with British uh, practices, and I just don't connect with them. But with the Mexican practices, I feel a lot more called to those. I feel a lot more tied to those, and I've had some spirits from uh, South American and general practices, but specifically Mexican practices, reach out to me, and I feel like there might be people who have ancestry where those kind of spirits might be reaching out to them to explore their ancestry, to learn more about themselves, and just grow in their understanding of other cultures because it's. I think we need to understand that cultures can interact with each other, they can influence each other, they can grow and learn together from each other. And I think this whole notion of closing practices and saying X people can't work with X, because it's not just white people all the time. Um, it's disheartening to see. I want you to know that if a spirit from a closed practice or a POC majority practice is reaching out to you and you're not sure what to do, I want you to learn about that spirit, to research more about that spirit, and then learn about that culture that they come from. And if they're from a closed practice, seek members from that practice and see what you can learn from them. And if you feel like you really want to initiate into that practice, you should do it. That's not to say that you can appropriate that practice, you can do whatever you want with that practice. No, you gotta respect it. To absolutely respect that practice. You are being welcomed into a vulnerable space. Um, I know a lot of people from closed practices and POC majority practices that do not want um, white people enter again because they've had bad experiences with that. We've seen people go into those spaces and just tarnish the entire name of the practice, and it's awful. It's terrible. I hate it. It's the worst thing. Like, you do not get to go into someone's space and destroy their name because you think their spirits are cool or whatever. Um, I'm thinking of a specific author, but I don't want to get into that here, at least. But yeah, I don't think that if a POC spirit is calling out to you, they want to curse you, hex you, and destroy your bloodline. And they might be asking you to learn more. And maybe they don't even want to work with you, just like to get you to think outside of your sphere of knowledge and learn about another practice that may not be suited for you, but just to grow your knowledge. There's all kinds of reasons, and they don't have to be for hexing you. Anyways, I just really wanted to say that because it's important to me and I think it needed to be said. This is going to be a bit of a longer video, I can tell. So let's go to the flip side. You contacting deities. Don't know what that was, but we're going with it. How can you actually contact deities? There are so many different ways, but I think the best way and the most direct way is prayer. I know a lot of people have baggage with prayer. From a largely Christian society, normally, we have issues with prayer when we're entering into pagan spaces. But prayer is an absolutely beautiful thing. And it's been done way before Christianity. It's just fantastic. It's the best way to contact deities. It doesn't have to be ornate or anything. Just sit down and be like, Persephone, I want to get to know you better. Please enter into my life and help me to learn more about you. Thank you for being present here, and yeah, thank you, Persephone. Be as simple as that. I'm using Persephone as an example because she's the first one that came to mind. She's another deity who's been reaching out to me a lot, or well, I've been reaching out to. Very interesting which spirits are coming forward now. Anyways, prayer is like the best way to really get in contact with the deity, and oh, I didn't mention this. You can contact the deity before they contact you. Be forward. You like think about it this way: if we were all waiting to have someone come up to us and be our friend, we no one had friends. Like you don't need like signs from a person. Like someone doesn't need to be like, you know, for you to become friends. You can just be like, hey, I like your shirt. Let's be friends. Or I guess with working, you don't need signs from a company to want to work for a company. You know, you can research a company and be like, hey, this sounds like a good job for me. I have the credentials. I should work for this company. Transition. Prayer is definitely the most direct form of deity contact. However, there are other forms that people will go through, and I think that it's important if I'm doing a comprehensive video to go over those other forms. Even if I personally disagree with them or whatever, it's important to go over them so people know their options. So first off is tarot. Just like you can do tarot spreads to find your deity, you can do tarot spreads to commune with your deity. These spreads can be all sorts of different things. I always go with 3-card spreads whenever I'm doing any sort of reading for myself. So start with 3 cards. I think 3 cards is a pretty balanced form to go with, pretty balanced spread to go with, because with 1 card you have too little information to draw on. You have, let's say you ask your deck, hey, help me to see what would be a good offering for my deity today, and you get something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a card that doesn't have an obvious meaning. You get the Tower or something. You're like, well, what does that mean? You can obviously intune something with that, but it might not be super obvious at first. Offering's not really a good example of that, because you could get something out of that, but like, if you're doing for something more communicative, like, hey deity, what's your message for me today? And you get some random minor arcana card, you might have some trouble interpreting it at first. So going with 3 cards can give more context to the situation, give more context to what exactly you're looking at in terms of this communication with the deity. That being said, you can do all kinds of different spreads. I don't really do spreads anymore, so I don't know the off the top of my head. Celtic Cross is a good one. There's 10-card spreads that I like to do as well. When I want a more in-depth reading. Another thing that you can do with tarot is you can dedicate a specific deck. This is for your deck hoarders, by the way. You can dedicate a specific deck for your deity. So, for example, this isn't a deity per se, but I have a deck dedicated specifically to Santa Muerte that I have more specifically dedicated to her aspect as Nina Violeta. And so I call upon her specifically using that deck only. So whenever I want to work with her for divination, I will only use that deck. I think it's a cool idea, and you can make that connection will go a little bit deeper that way, you know? The next method is Pendulum, which, while I really don't like Pendulum because the answers that it gives are almost, there's a lot of factors that go into it, and I think that people tend to look at pendulums at face value and assume that whatever response they get is the correct one and has no influence. It's mostly beginner people who are looking for validation through an easy means, and while there's nothing wrong with that, and I understand where it comes from, I personally think that it's better to use pendulum for specific types of things. Yes, no's, obviously, but don't really take it with a grain of salt, I guess. It's kind of how I would say to go about it, because you shouldn't let a thing on a string determine um, really big life choices for you. It can help you out, and it can especially help out with determining what you personally want based off of your subconscious thoughts, because it does work on subconscious movements. Though I have seen and experienced some crazy things with pendulums, but that's besides the point. Though with pendulum, you can definitely talk to a spirit or a deity with it. Again, I would go with the consecration method, taking your pendulum and consecrating it specifically for a deity, fine-tuning it to their energy, so you are like, okay, this is only for this deity, and have that psychological connection in your mind that when you are going to this pendulum, you're saying, okay, this is for this spirit specifically, not for anything else. I'm getting information from this spirit specifically because I am telling it that I'm getting it from the spirit, you know? It's a psychological connection and it just clicks in your brain. It's part of the magical mindset, which I should probably do a video on in the future, because that's a really important aspect of the occult and magic at large. Other methods for connecting with deities is obviously other forms of divination. I know people like to have a set of runes if they want to work with a Norse deity. They like to have runes. I don't know anything about runes, so I won't be covering that here. Go check out other people's videos on that, or read articles, or books, or whatever you please. Find good information on that, because I'm not the source for that. You can also just do other forms of divination, like scrying, unconventional forms of divination. I made a little post on that about my Tumblr when I was still using Tumblr. Which can be things like cloud gazing, looking at cracks in the dirt. If you have cracks in the dirt, I don't know if that's a universal thing though, because I know some people have really smooth dirt. Off topic. Candle flame scrying, candle flame divination, as in determining what's going, determining what a spirit is saying based on what the candle flame is doing is a little bit, it's not the best form of divination, because it does have a lot of factors similar with pendulum that go into it that can be accounted for that would cause different things to happen. Like if you put a ton of oil and you have on a candle, you have a big flame, it's because you have a ton of oil, not because the deity is really there. The way I kind of tend to look at it is, if you are in ritual and you have these candles out, just plain candles, nothing special added, if you have those out and they start acting kind of funky in a controlled environment, that is when I'd say you can look into that. Again, your mileage may vary. Do what's best for your practice. I want to be a lot better about not dictating what people can and cannot do, because I feel like I've been very dogmatic in the past, and I want people to know that my experience does not invalidate your experience does not invalidate my experience. We can coexist and have different thoughts and views on the universe that we share. Anyways, side tangent again. This is going to be a long video, I know. there's a lot of things you can do to contact deities. There's a lot of things you can do to reach out. And I think that reaching out is a really important first step to growing your practice. Um, because you can't always just wait and hope that a deity will come to you. I think that, yeah, you do need to make some form of approach to them. Sitting around expecting a deity to come out and knock on your door and say, hey, I want to work with you. The moment that you decide you're going to be practicing witchcraft is unlikely. You can't depend on that. You can research and learn more about different religious groups and practices and cultures and see what pops out to you. That's also another thing I do want to cover here briefly before I wrap up the video, is that it is okay to learn about other cultures, religions, etc., and incorporate those deities into your practice. It is not cultural appropriation if you approach it from a respectful angle, from a angle that is like, okay, I am going to learn about your culture. I'm going to learn about the values of the culture, learn about why that deity was worshipped, honored, or if they weren't worshipped or honored at all. Because there were deities that were not worshipped or honored in the slightest, and those, interestingly enough, seem to be the most popular ones. Right now, at least. Which I have theories on, but not for here. If you want me to talk about them, leave them in the comments below. I love interaction. Please talk to me. But yeah, learn about other cultures, learn about their practices or traditions, and how they worshipped, honored, and worked with the spirits, or if they didn't, and why they didn't. So you can build your own practice around that. Similar to the spiel on close practices, please always understand what you are doing, and if someone from that culture educates you on that, don't take it as a personal attack. If they are actually actively practicing that religion, and they are telling you, hey, this is not how this works, please understand that and ask them to teach you more or provide you sources. Because not everyone is going to know right off the bat, based on some research, that everything about practice, you know? You aren't going to know everything the first week you start deciding to research Shinto. You aren't going to know everything the moment you decide to start researching Hasidic Judaism. And you aren't going to know everything the moment you start to research Islam or something. You get the point, though. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. You are always learning. This is, again, just a jumping off point for learning and research to begin. So, I think I should wrap up the video here. Thank you all for watching. I hope you did learn something. Even though it's a longer video, I hope you did stick it out. It took me a while to record, so I do hope that you guys got something out of this. I want to be as thorough and comprehensive as possible. So thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for hopefully next week's video. And check out the previous video if you haven't, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.